When a man likes you more than he's willing to show, the first and strongest clue often isn't found in what he does, it's found in what he holds back. Most people assume that interest reveals itself through openness, enthusiasm, or obvious pursuit. But the deeper truth is that attraction, especially for a man who isn't used to feeling something real, tends to trigger the opposite reaction. The moment his emotions deepen, his guard goes up. Not because he hopes to keep you out, but because he suddenly becomes aware of what he stands to lose if he lets you in too fast. This is the paradox that confuses so many women. The guy who flirts confidently with people he doesn't care about becomes strangely tense around the one person he genuinely wants. It's not rejection. It's not disinterest, it's emotional self-protection. He doesn't want to misstep, say too much, chase too hard, or risk looking like he's more invested than you. And beneath that fear lies something even more vulnerable, the anxiety that if you truly saw how much he feels, you might not feel the same in return. When a man is trying to manage emotions that are bigger than his comfort zone, he becomes hyper, attuned to his behavior. He analyzes himself, he slows down, he filters his words, sometimes even to the point where he seems distant. But distance isn't the absence of emotion. Sometimes it's the symptom of having too much of it. And when you notice this subtle shift, the extra pause before he speaks, the way he adjusts himself in your presence, the slight tension in his expression, it's rarely accidental. It's the internal battle between wanting you deeply and wanting to protect himself from the vulnerability of that want. A man who feels only mild attraction doesn't think this hard. He doesn't guard himself. He doesn't worry about pacing. He doesn't monitor the emotional impact of every interaction. But a man who likes you more than he shows becomes careful, thoughtful, occasionally hesitant, because the stakes feel higher, because you matter, because losing your interest would feel far heavier than he's prepared to admit. This is where emotional intelligence becomes crucial. Instead of interpreting his guardedness as a lack of desire, see it for what it truly is, a sign of emotional depth. A man who becomes cautious is a man who's taking you seriously. And what he's trying to figure out isn't whether he likes you. It's whether showing it too soon might risk the connection you're already building. He's not pulling away to escape you. He's pulling himself together so he can meet you without falling apart. The challenge, of course, is not taking his guardedness personally. It's recognizing that his internal restraint isn't a verdict on your worth, but a reflection of his fear. Fear of misreading the moment, fear of not being enough, fear of stepping into vulnerability without knowing if he's safe. What he needs is patience, not pressure. What he responds to is steadiness, not interrogation. And what he ultimately reveals is shaped by how secure he feels in the presence of your calm, not the intensity of your concern. So when you see a man tightening his emotional armor, don't mistake it for a closed heart. Sometimes it's the heart that feels the most that hides the most, and the ones who guard themselves the hardest are often the ones who fall the deepest. One of the clearest signs a man likes you more than he's showing is the shift in attention he gives you, attention that feels intentional rather than convenient. It's not the loud, dramatic kind of attention that some men use to impress you. It's quieter, more deliberate, and often more revealing. He notices things he doesn't have to notice. He listens in a way he doesn't listen to anyone else. He remembers details you forgot you even mentioned. And while he may not verbalize how much he cares, his behavior begins weaving a pattern that quietly exposes his deeper interest. When a man is genuinely drawn to you, his mind doesn't shut off when you walk away. He carries your words with him. He replays moments. He thinks about what you said, how you said it, and what it might mean. This creates a kind of presence even in his absence. So when you talk to him again and he brings up something you said last week, not as a casual reference but with real curiosity or concern, understand that this isn't typical male behavior. This is emotional investment surfacing without permission. But what makes this especially meaningful is that he's not doing it to impress you. He's not ticking boxes or performing interest. It's instinctual. His attention shifts because you occupy a space in his mind that's reserved for people who matter. And when a man is trying to keep his feelings in check, this is often the one thing he can't hide. He can fake distance, he can fake disinterest, he can fake being busy, but he can't fake selective attention, the kind where his focus sharpens around you without him consciously deciding it should. Sometimes this shows up in the smallest ways. He notices the tone of your voice when something's off. He picks up on your mood before you've said a word. He subtly adjusts himself to make you comfortable. He pays attention to what makes you laugh, what makes you think, what makes you retreat. These aren't romantic gestures on the surface, but psychologically, they're a powerful signal of emotional attunement, the kind that only exists when someone feels connected to you beneath the surface. And there's another layer. He becomes sensitive to your perception of him. If he respects your opinion, if he wants to show up well in your eyes, if he subtly tries to be a little better around you without making it obvious, that's not a man who's indifferent. That's a man who feels something he hasn't yet learned how to communicate. Emotions create self-awareness, and self-awareness creates intentional behavior. Even if he's not expressing his feelings directly, the care behind his actions begins to speak for him. What's important is not to confuse his subtlety with uncertainty. Men often express genuine interest in restrained ways, especially when the feelings are new, surprising, or intimidating. They reveal themselves through where they place their mental energy. And if that energy is consistently focused on you, on understanding you, remembering you, responding to you, that's not accidental. That's emotional gravity at work. So pay close attention to where his attention goes when he's not trying to impress you. The truth of what he feels often slips out in the moments he thinks you're not watching, and sometimes the quietest signs are the ones that speak the loudest. When a man likes you more than he shows, one of the most revealing signs is the quiet protectiveness that slips through his behavior. And I don't mean the exaggerated, performative kind where he tries to be a hero in front of everyone. I'm talking about the subtle, almost unconscious ways he starts looking out for you, ways he may not even fully realize he's doing. It's the instinct to make sure you're okay, even when he's trying to maintain emotional distance. It's the small decisions he makes that center around your comfort, your safety, and your well-being, even though he hasn't said a word about how he feels. This kind of protectiveness is psychological, not dramatic. It shows up in the way he pays attention when you talk about something that stresses you. It shows up in how he might step a little closer when you're in an uncomfortable environment. It shows up when he subtly checks in after a long day, not to pry, but because he genuinely wants to know you're all right. He may not articulate it as concern, especially if he's the kind of man who isn't used to expressing vulnerability, but the feeling behind it is unmistakable. When you matter to him, he becomes attentive to anything that might emotionally or physically affect you. What's powerful about this dynamic is that he doesn't show this protectiveness to everyone. It isn't a personality trait, it's an emotional response. It's triggered because you occupy mental and emotional space inside him, and when that happens, he becomes attuned to your experience. He wants you to feel safe in his presence, not because he thinks you need saving, but because caring about you makes him naturally step into a role of support. He wants to be someone you can lean on, even if he hasn't openly offered it. Sometimes this protectiveness comes through in how he reacts to other people around you. Maybe he notices when someone speaks to you disrespectfully, and he subtly shifts his tone or position. Maybe he becomes unusually quiet or observant when you mention another man, not out of insecurity, but because the emotional stakes are higher for him than he admits. Or perhaps he becomes invested in helping you solve a problem, not in a controlling way, but in a way that reflects genuine care for your peace of mind. These are not random behaviors. They're emotional cues revealing a deeper attachment. The interesting part is that men often express protectiveness before they express affection. Protection is a form of emotional language. It's rooted in the desire to preserve what they value, even if that value is something they haven't fully acknowledged yet. And because so many men are taught to show care through action rather than words, this protector energy often becomes the first real glimpse into how much he feels. But here's the deeper piece. You're not meant to rely on this protectiveness. You're meant to recognize what it represents. You're meant to see it as a reflection of emotional investment, not as something to depend on for your own sense of safety. When you understand that subtle protectiveness is his heart speaking in its native language, you stop doubting whether his quiet actions mean something. You start seeing them for the emotional truth they reveal. And if there's one thing to take away, let it be this. A man who protects you in small, consistent, unspoken ways is a man whose feelings run deeper than he allows himself to admit. His silence hides his words, but his actions expose his heart. There's another sign that a man likes you far more than he lets on, and it's one people often overlook because it doesn't feel dramatic or romantic. It's the way he becomes unusually patient with you, not patient in the passive sense, patient in the deeply intentional sense. When a guy is emotionally invested but hesitant to reveal it, patience becomes his safest form of expression. It lets him stay close to you without crossing lines he's afraid to cross. It lets him show he cares without exposing his heart too quickly. And because he's cautious, that patience can be one of the most telling indicators of genuine feeling. You can see this in how he listens. When a man doesn't care, his attention becomes fragmented. He listens with half of his mind, he checks out internally, or he shifts the conversation back to himself. But when he likes you more than he's ready to admit, his listening changes. He waits for you to finish your thought. He absorbs your words instead of prepping his response. He notices the emotions behind what you're saying, not just the content. And this kind of listening isn't a skill, it's an emotional instinct. It's what happens when he respects you, admires you, and wants to understand you on a deeper level. This patience also shows up in how he handles your pace. If you need time, he gives you time. If you need clarity, he waits for clarity. If you're guarded, he doesn't push to break down your walls. He simply stays present while you slowly lower them yourself. That restraint is meaningful. It means he's not in a hurry to get something from you. He's in it because he values the connection more than the outcome. A man who isn't invested grows impatient quickly. A man who likes you deeply gives the connection space to unfold naturally, and yet this patience can be confusing because it doesn't always look like pursuit. Sometimes it even looks like distance. You might think he's taking a step back, when in reality he's giving you room because he doesn't want to overwhelm you. He doesn't want to sabotage something he genuinely feels drawn to. His patience isn't disinterest, it's quiet respect. It's the space he holds for someone he sees as more than a momentary attraction. This is why women often sense sincerity from patient men before they ever hear romantic words. because patience signals emotional depth. It signals intention. It signals the presence of feelings he doesn't trust himself to reveal yet. He's not waiting because he's unsure about you. He's waiting because he's unsure about timing, vulnerability, and how to move in a way that honors both your comfort and his heart. But perhaps the most beautiful part is that patience reflects courage, not dramatic courage, but the quiet kind, the courage to show up consistently without demanding more than you're giving, the courage to let the connection breathe, the courage to risk liking you without rushing you. That kind of patience is rare, and it's almost impossible to fake. So if you ever find yourself questioning whether a man feels something deeper, pay attention to the way he waits, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. Because a man's patience is often the clearest evidence of the feelings he's trying hardest to hide. There's a moment in every growing connection where the emotional atmosphere shifts, subtly, almost imperceptibly, but enough for you to feel it. And one of the clearest signs that a man likes you more than he shows is how quiet he becomes when the emotional stakes rise. It's counterintuitive because we're used to associating interest with pursuit, excitement, enthusiasm. But emotional depth in men often reveals itself not in noise, but in stillness. That quiet is not emptiness. It's intensity he doesn't yet know how to express. You'll notice it most when the conversation turns vulnerable, when you talk about your past, your fears, your disappointments, or what matters deeply to you. His energy changes, the playfulness softens, the banter pauses, he becomes still, almost careful, because suddenly the moment matters in a way he wasn't prepared for. And for a man who feels strongly but hasn't yet found the courage to show it, vulnerability becomes a double-edged sword. He wants to lean in, but leaning in reveals his own feelings. He wants to respond, but responding reveals the depth of his investment. So instead, he sits in that quiet space, fighting the instinct to protect himself while resisting the urge to pull away entirely. This quietness also emerges when physical closeness enters the picture. Maybe you sit next to him, and the space between you shrinks. Maybe your hand brushes his. Maybe you lean just a little closer. And instead of making a bold move, he freezes, not because he's indifferent, but because he's overwhelmed. That tension isn't disinterest, it's desire fighting caution. Men who don't care act boldly. Men who care deeply hesitate, not out of fear of you, but out of fear of doing the wrong thing, misreading the moment, or revealing just how much they want you. There's a psychological truth underneath all of this. When someone means more to us, the risk becomes higher. And where there is risk, there is caution. That caution often looks like silence. It looks like a man choosing his words too carefully. It looks like him stopping mid-sentence because he's worried about saying too much. It looks like him starting to express something, then pulling back because he's not ready for you to know how deeply he feels. And yet, in that quiet, there's an emotional signal stronger than any verbal confession, because silence filled with tension speaks louder than words filled with confidence. Silence is what happens when the heart is louder than the mind, but the mind hasn't yet given permission to speak. The important thing to understand is this: a man who becomes quieter around you isn't trying to distance himself. He's trying to manage himself. He's regulating the parts of him that want to move faster than he thinks he should. He's trying to make sure he doesn't ruin something that he values more than he can articulate. So don't misinterpret a man's quiet as indifference. Sometimes the quietest moments hold the clearest truth. He feels something powerful, and he's trying to steady himself long enough to handle it well. And when you recognize that, you stop doubting his intention and start seeing the depth behind his restraint. Because when a man goes quiet in the presence of someone he cares for, it's not the absence of feeling. It's the presence of feeling he's finally struggling to contain. There's one sign that almost never lies, even in the men who do everything in their power to hide their feelings. It's subtle, controlled, and often disguised as indifference, but if you look closely, it tells you exactly where his heart is. It's the small flashes of jealousy, the quiet, restrained kind that slips through in moments he doesn't expect. He won't make a scene, he won't accuse, he won't demand anything, but something shifts in him the second another man enters your orbit. It's not about competition, it's about the sudden awareness of how much he has to lose, and this isn't the loud, toxic kind of jealousy you see in insecure relationships. This is the micro, moment jealousy, the kind that leaks from a man who cares but hasn't yet given himself permission to show it. It shows up in his eyes first. Maybe another man compliments you and his expression tightens for half a second. Maybe someone else makes you laugh and he goes quiet, not to punish you, but to process the emotion he didn't expect to feel. That flash of emotion is real-time vulnerability, and for a man who likes you more than he shows, vulnerability is something he's been carefully avoiding. You'll notice these subtle changes in his behavior too. He may stand a little closer, not possessively, but protectively. He may become more attentive in the conversation. He may suddenly ask questions, not to interrogate, but to understand where he stands with you. When a man cares, his awareness heightens. He pays attention to the dynamic around you, not because he wants to control it, but because he's fighting the fear that someone else could connect with you in ways he hasn't yet dared to. And here's the deeper psychological truth. Jealousy in this subtle form isn't rooted in ego. It's rooted in emotional investment. He's not threatened because someone else is interested. He's threatened because he finally realizes how much he is. Jealousy exposes what he's been trying to suppress. It reveals the depth he's been trying to keep to himself, and because he's not ready to confess it, he tries to manage it, hide it, or rationalize it. But feelings are hard to conceal when the stakes feel real. There's also an interesting emotional shift that happens when he sees other men noticing you. It triggers a form of internal urgency. Suddenly, the connection he's been taking slowly becomes something he's afraid of losing by moving too slowly. This doesn't always turn into bold action, but it does turn into a shift in energy. He becomes more present, more intentional, more aware of the space between you and how quickly someone else could step into it. But the most telling part is that his jealousy never crosses into trying to control you. He's not asking you to change anything. He's not demanding reassurance. His restraint shows that he respects your autonomy even when his emotions feel threatened. That balance, the tension between caring deeply and respecting your space, is a sign of emotional maturity, not insecurity. So when you see that small, quiet flicker of jealousy, don't overlook it. Don't misread it. Don't rush to analyze it. Simply recognize what it reveals. He's invested, maybe more than he expected, certainly more than he's comfortable admitting, and possibly more than you realized. Those moments of subtle jealousy are not about possession. They're about fear. Fear of missing the connection. Fear of being too late. Fear of loving quietly while someone else loves you loudly. And the truth is simple. Sometimes the emotions a man hides the most are the ones that matter the most.